Hey, this is Doc David with Head Shrink Inc., and I have a friend of mine, Ian Bulliard, here to talk about the election and the 5 stages of grief. Listen in.
You are listening to Head Shrink Inc., your answers to life, relationships, and daily living.
Hey, it's Doc David, Head Shrink Inc. Hello, how's it going? Is everyone surviving? Ian, are you surviving this election nightmare? Is it a nightmare though?
No, it's more like that movie you don't want to watch, but you're already like 45 minutes into it, and you can't not finish it because you got to see how it ends.
Yeah. Is there a movie that you've seen like that? Some probably Barbie movie with your daughter.
Yeah, you know that like back before there was Netflix originals.
Yeah.
Right? It's like some studio comes out and just says, "Yeah, we're going to throw some money at this," which would have better been spent on a fire.
Yeah.
But they decided to get a couple guys out of CGI school and throw something terrible together with no story.
Yes. I've seen movies like that before.
Yeah.
So Ian's a dad. He's a friend. We have another podcast that we do called the
Epic Dad
not the,
Podcast.
but it's epicdadpodcast.com. And we're working on that. Nothing's been published yet. We're still working on the website and the logo and stuff, but that will be coming out soon. That podcast is about just he and I as two dads talking about life and what it means to be an epic dad. Tongue in cheek, I should say, right? Because
totally.
I don't think I'm an epic dad.
No,
definitely.
And
I know Ian's not an epic dad. So.
Absolutely not.
So
I'm more like a value village goodwill dad.
Which there's nothing wrong with that.
No,
nothing wrong with that because
I have feelings too.
You can find good things. And what drink are you enjoying there? On this?
Some seltzer water.
Seltzer water. Oh, I meant in the other cup of the apple cider I gave you.
Oh, in the other cup, yeah, apple cider.
Yeah.
Strangely enough, yeah.
All right, so if you haven't been aware, there's been an election that's going on, and if you don't know about this election, you've either been living in a cave,
or you just woke up from a coma.
Yeah, or you're dead.
So first and foremost, we'd like to formally apologize on behalf of the rest of the human race.
Really?
Wouldn't that be terrible to wake up from a coma to this?
Yeah.
Come on.
The one thing that I want to make sure that I don't do is buy into the media narrative. And I know that I think that I never used to believe that when people say, "Oh, you're just buying into the media narrative." But this election has really made me realize that the media has this bias that they want you to believe. And I think with the advent of social media, the internet, that bias has slowly been erased, or it's been, what's the word I'm looking for?
Dismantled?
Just starting to be dismantled. I mean, because
disassembled.
Just think about, and we're getting off topic, but think back in the 70s when there was none of this social media stuff, and how the power that that the news organizations could influence people.
The power, or the time. I mean, go back to the 90s.
Yeah. I mean, up to social media and Twitter and et cetera, et cetera. So that's definitely a conversation for another podcast. But today I want to talk about the 5 stages of grief and how it relates to this election. So one of the things that I've seen, and maybe you've seen it too, is there's these people that were so emotionally involved with Hillary Clinton's campaign that when it came about that she was losing or lost, they just broke down. And have you seen those pictures?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing that I saw was it was happening like in front of her. These 5 stages of grief were happening in front of our eyes.
In a matter of seconds.
Yeah, and not just with your average Joe, but it was happening with news anchors.
Yeah.
And on CNN or MSNBC or Fox News or wherever.
Live on TV.
Yeah. And it was just so fascinating to me as a person that studies human behavior just to see it playing out. The original 5 stages of grief, it was created by, it's called the Kubler-Ross model.
What does that mean?
That's who created it.
Oh, okay.
It was created by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in her, I'm reading now, her 1969 book on death and dying. And it was inspired by her work with terminally ill patients. And so it's pretty much the standard go-to thing now when people talk about the 5 stages of grief. And usually it relates to, I mean, you could probably think back in your own life about something that created grief for you. Yeah. And maybe even you remembering going through these stages. Now, I've always seen these stages related to relationships where there's a breakup, there's a death in the family, there's some type of terminal illness that's happening, or there's a job loss or something like that. But I've never seen it in relationship to an election. And so that's what I thought was, yeah.
Not even during the 2 Obama elections?
No, not to this degree. I mean, I was actually trying to think back through it.
Well, nothing compares to this degree. I mean, this is crazy.
Well, I mean, even there's that meme now that says, look at all the riots that happened, and then it lists when Clinton was elected 2 times and when Obama was elected 2 times and how there were no riots. And so there's a lot. I mean, again, we're going to do another podcast on Epic Dad podcast about the politics of this. But so this grief, there's the 5 stages of grief, and I'll just read them off really quickly, and then we'll go into each one specifically. So denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. And so, like I said before, I mean, it happens with children that are struggling with divorce of their parents. It sometimes happens within the realm of substance abuse, and again, like I haven't seen it in the realm of this, like an election cycle before.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the first one. I'm going to say it, and then you can maybe give me an idea of what you saw or something that you heard or read. So the first stage is denial.
Yes.
So in this election, where did you see that first stage of denial?
Based on the election results?
That or
the campaign trail? What are we talking about?
Let's talk about election night on.
Okay.
Because I want to limit it. So election night on, did you see the initial stage of denial?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah. Like, can you think of an example?
Let's see. I think I was watching the YouTube live feed of NBC, and in all fairness, NBC has a very well polished product,
right?
And very well spoken TV anchors, right? That is I believe, other than CNN, that's the most watched news source.
I think that's the one that had Chuck Todd, right? I think is the
Chuck
he has
Todd,
a goatee, like a goatee. And
yeah.
Dan Rather?
He's the screen poker, right? You know, the guy that's standing there is like, well, if so-and-so wins this many and this many here in this district, you know, that whole thing. I mean, initially there was like, once Trump tipped the 200 mark, it was like, you just saw this giant yellow light come on, right? And I still don't know how I feel about it, right? But you could see these guys and women like processing, and then you'd see that moment when someone's talking, someone's feeding them information, because they all wear earpieces, right? Yeah. And they need to. That's important in that job. But no, I'm not saying they're being force-fed lines. You just see the concentration of, I have to be fully engaged with the viewer. Yeah. I'm being fed information, and
I can't believe what's happening.
What is happening? All at the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah, complete, utter disbelief.
Oh yeah. So someone had made a montage of the 5 stages of grief, and you could probably find it on YouTube if you Google it. And yeah, it's like I remember the beginning conversation when the polls just opened, right? And they started reporting, and oh yeah, Donald Trump, this is going to be his only path to victory. And so when he started traversing that path and maybe winning some places that he wasn't supposed to win, you could see some like trepidation. I was listening to the radio as well, and it was funny just to hear people trying to just be very even keeled, knowing what their political bias is.
Sure.
But it was interesting to see the denial. So, the second part was the anger. The second stage is anger. So, so when the individual recognizes that denial cannot continue, they become frustrated, especially at proximate individuals. So people around them, they get frustrated with. Now, I saw that, and you can tell me where you saw it. I saw that more not with anchors, but I saw that with just people on the street. Yeah. Because those anchors are professionals, and so they have to control themselves to some degree. I did see a clip of Rachel Maddow, who's MSNBC, and she was kind of letting her...
This is your life now.
What?
This is the world we live in.
Yeah. You saw that too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which that is, in all fairness, to take center here, because that's where I position myself predominantly anymore these days. That has to be said. In her defense, that needs to be stated. But this is the life we have today. But not facing it like, oh, here's this giant atom missile coming at us.
But she's not saying it as a factual statement. She's saying it as a person that I think is in disbelief.
Oh, sure.
Or has that anger.
Aren't you?
Right.
Are you not in disbelief? Come on. You have a hold on, let me set the table here. Are you let's look at this ink on paper. Mm-hmm. Are you not in disbelief that we have the host of The Apprentice as president-elect?
I don't know. I'm trying to be honest here. I'm more apathetic.
Thanks. Okay.
I think that what happens so Obama had 2 terms, right? And so he first ran on the hope and change. There's going to be hope and change, and then I'm going to run on these promises, right?
Like every president ever.
Yeah, and then more than most of those promises never came through. Oh, if you want to keep your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Wrong. Premiums won't go up. Wrong. And so I just become cynical, I guess. And so I think of him running, and I think, how is it really going to affect me? Now, someone could say, well, you're a white man. Of course it's not going to affect you, and of course you don't care. But I know people that I've interacted with since the election that are gay and are people of color who voted for Trump.
Yes.
And they don't view it the way that Rachel Maddow did or these other anchors do, or the protesters. So I don't think it's an easy answer.
Sure.
Right. Okay. So there's the second stage, which is anger. So the third stage is bargaining. And where I saw this with on the news at least was people trying to start talking. Oh wow, he has 200 electoral votes. Well, maybe he's gonna make it through. Maybe he's reached to some voters that we're not aware of. Oh, it seems like, and so they start talking themselves into, oh, there's this possibility that this presidency that they couldn't believe was even in existence is actually going to be happening, possibly.
Yeah.
Did you see anything that sticks out in you in the bargaining phase?
Well, where they're legitimately trying to reason.
Yeah.
With the plausibility.
Yeah, where they're trying to wrap their mind around.
Yeah. The for instance, the screen guy we were just talking about, the goatee on MSNBC. Chuck Todd, if you're listening to this, I'm sure you're a great guy. You have a very tough job that I don't ever want to have. But I'll say this: Chuck Todd was, and again, my bias in all of this is that the media is corrupt, period. And that's been proven through the WikiLeaks stuff that no one wants to talk about. That's the giant, as real as gravity is true, elephant in the room.
Project Veritas. Have you ever heard of Project Veritas?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's hit the fan. It's everywhere. It's in our eyes, but everyone's pretending like it's not there.
Right.
So, yeah, Chuck Todd was backpedaling, kind of. Maybe it's not even considered backpedaling. Maybe he's just trying to do his job. I don't know. But you can hear the gears kind of grinding as he's trying to find. He's downshifting and maybe he got through to this people group here. Maybe he got into this community here, and maybe, and then, but that immediately goes from the plausibility of can we call him president-elect to, well, let's see here, the Clinton organization needs to attack here, here, and here. And I'm thinking, well, attack. I mean, and really all they're doing is they're selling TV time because none of this matters. There's only 538 electoral votes, and that's all that matters. Mm-hmm. Your vote doesn't matter.
Well, the other thing, and this goes like the NBC, I would watch the NBC feed on YouTube, but then I would go to Google, which was refreshing every 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And so basically...
a truly live update.
Yeah, so basically he had won on Google.
Yeah.
But he was still like 3 states behind on NBC. And at some point I thought, this is why people don't watch, like why they're going to go away from media. Because I think
why they're going to go away from live TV.
Yeah, because the only reason that they were keeping these talking heads going, I think, was for commercials.
That's all it is.
And I just think that's, I don't know, that's not truthful. It's deceitful, and I think that,
absolutely.
I think that deceitfulness people are tired of.
Yes.
All right. So the bargaining was happening.
Yes.
Then I think what I clearly saw after the election was called for Trump, and I think I'm seeing it now. And you were just counting how many political posts you saw on your feed on Facebook, is the depression stage. Like, I'm so sad, I'm scared, I'm terrified, I can't believe this is happening. I mean, if you've been keeping up on social media, you couldn't have helped but see.
Sure.
And currently, if you go right now to your post, to your social media feed, you'll see people that either voted for Bernie or Hillary, complaining and sad and fearful and what I believe starting false narratives about who Trump is and who he will be and what things will be like under his presidency. And I say false narratives because of having conversations with my couple gay friends and African American friends that don't believe the things that I'm seeing on Facebook. So the depression piece is definitely there.
Oh, clearly.
And it is interesting because the last stage is acceptance. And, you know, if I'm working with a person who has these stages of grief and they just stay stuck in depression, what I've seen is that their life becomes miserable. They get stuck, and then they get into the cycle of just bouncing back from anger and depression, and they become a victim. And I think, I mean, there's calls for unity even from people that didn't vote for Trump, which I think is admirable, honorable, and what a lot of people did when Obama was elected as well, like calling for unity. But I think if people don't go to the it's going to be okay, I can't fight it, I may as well prepare for it, I'm going to work within this government that we've lived in for the, you know, that's been created for the last 200 and odd years. Because if people don't accept it, I think that those people, I mean, everyone else in the country is going to move on. But I think that those people... Eventually. I mean, because that's just the way things have to work. You have to move on with things. And you do the best with what you have. And so I think that some people have gone through that stage of acceptance where they're starting to accept the results. But I think a lot of the protesters we see now, I think they're in that depression, anger. They're stuck right now. And again,
and by the way, shout out to those protesters from the ones I've seen. I'm a Portland native, and the live feeds I've been watching are a bunch of people that as soon as someone gets rowdy and tries to incite violence, you know, like there was a perfect example. There's a TriMet, which is the bus service in Portland, driving down the street, and they pushed a dumpster in front of it, or there was a human chain, blocking the bus, and that poor bus driver, right? Like, how sad is that? And that person is like, that's like being stuck in an aquarium. What are you going to do? And you're surrounded by a bunch of angry people, and there's that one psychopath that is looking for a big blunt object to start breaking out windows. And then you see these other people, it doesn't matter what age demographic they are associated with, they're in the streets with the people and they're extinguishing this. Now, that may not happen forever, but it has to be stated that there are some people that are taking a very peaceful approach to this.
Yeah.
And does it work long term? I'd like to think so, right? Freedom of speech, let's defend it. But at the same time, you have to be wise with your delivery, with your execution, and when you see the crazies, you gotta put that out right away.
Right, and so I think I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that is maybe a way towards acceptance. So if people feel like they can work through this is a way to work through the depression. Like I'm sad about this outcome, I'm scared, and so I'm going to go out and yell and scream about it, and then go back to living my life, and then I realize, oh wow, nothing's really changed. I think that's a way to get to that acceptance. But one of the things I'd encourage people listening to this podcast is, if you find yourself stuck in that kind of depression place and going back and forth from depression to anger, and you are a victim, you feel like you're a victim of what's happened in this election, definitely I'd seek out a competent therapist to help you kind of struggle through that. Because if you stay stuck in that, it's just going to make your life miserable. People won't want to be around you. Your friends and family won't want to be around you, and you might lose your job. And I think that's a real thing that happens when people have a person that dies in their life. If they stay stuck for too long and they don't go through these stages in a proper way, it just affects their life in a very negative way. All right, so those 5 stages of grief. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at headshrinkinc@gmail.com. Thanks for listening in.